How do you disrupt that, something that is so large, so vast, and seemingly so powerful?
Right. It's an ongoing battle, one that we can't afford to give up.
A billionaire railroad executive named Marcus Devine found a way to make people disappear without ever leaving the United States. He built a network of secret prison cars that were designed to be invisible to the law. These trains crossed state lines every few hours, making it impossible for local police to ever catch up. Inside, 156 prisoners were kept in total darkness, with only the vibration of the tracks to tell them they were still alive. It took a massive team of federal agents from the FBI, ICE, and ATF to finally bring this rolling house of horrors to a screeching halt. Hidden rails. The radio silence across the American railway network was shattered by a single command code. In 17 different states, from the flat plains of Montana to the thick woods of Louisiana, 23 massive freight trains slammed on their emergency brakes at the exact same time. To the average person waiting at a crossing, it looked like a standard mechanical failure. But on the secret radio channels, it was a move planned with total precision. As the wheels screeched to a halt, the tree lines exploded with movement. Federal agents from the FBI, ICE, and ATF swarmed the tracks. Helicopters hovered just above the power lines, their rotors kicking up dust while armored vehicles blocked every road. The target was not the front of the train. Agents were looking for specific cars hidden deep within the long line of cargo. On one specific train stopped outside of Billings, Montana, an FBI team sprinted past cars loaded with car parts and clothes. They were counting down the numbers. Car 17, car 23, car 31. From the outside, they looked like standard rusted boxcars, exactly like the thousands of others rolling across the country. But when the agents broke open the heavy steel doors with special heat tools, they didn't find boxes of toys or food. They found a secret hallway. Inside that hallway were tiny cells that were soundproof and dark. This wasn't a cargo train. It was a rolling high-security prison operating right in front of everyone. As the agents moved to help the people inside, they realized how smart the operation really was. These trains weren't just hiding people. They were designed to be invisible to the law. They used a specific legal loophole that allowed them to move human beings across state lines for 6 years without ever getting a search warrant. Basically, this was a ghost network. For 6 years, a company known as Transcontinental Logistics had been running a shadow service for very rich and dangerous people. The company was started by Marcus Devine, a former railroad boss worth $240 million. He promised his clients one thing: he could make any problem disappear. Devine knew a major weakness in American law enforcement. Police raids need a fixed spot. You need an address to get a warrant. But what if the prison never stays in one place? The trains were always moving, which meant they were always ahead of the law. By the time a judge in Illinois signed a paper to search a train, it was already in Iowa. By the time Iowa got ready, it was in Nebraska. The victims found inside these cars were not random people. They were people who knew too much, like whistleblowers or business rivals. Wealthy clients paid $2 million for each person they wanted to send away. Some were held for months in total darkness. The constant shaking of the tracks was the only thing they could feel. Others were taken to far-off woods and never seen again. For years, the FBI was totally stuck. They saw a pattern of missing people but could never find a crime scene. Everything changed when a special agent named Jennifer Morrison saw a strange pattern. She noticed that almost every high-profile disappearance in the last 10 years happened within 24 hours of a freight train passing through that person's town. It was a huge hint, but proving it was a total nightmare. The trains were protected by laws that govern trade between states. Stopping a mile-long train just on a hunch is almost impossible. The big break didn't come from a secret microphone or a confession. It came from one of the victims who was smarter than his kidnappers. Things get even crazier when you realize how one man prepared for his own kidnapping. Silent cry. Michael Torres was an investigative reporter who was looking into big company secrets. When he was taken from his house in the middle of the night, he knew he was in big trouble. But he had prepared for this exact moment. Before he was taken, Torres had a doctor put a tiny emergency tracker under the skin of his leg. It was turned off and could not be found by normal security tools. It only started working if he pressed it in a very specific way. When he woke up in the pitch-black darkness of car 23, he didn't scream or fight. He just pressed his leg. The signal from his leg was very weak, but it was designed to go through thick steel walls. At the FBI Command Center in Washington, D.C., Agent Morrison watched a single red dot moving across a map of Wyoming. The speed was steady at 55 miles per hour. The path matched the railroad tracks perfectly. The room went wild when they realized they finally had a live location. At first, the tactical teams wanted to jump in right away. The state police were ready to stop the train at the next crossing. But Morrison told everyone to wait. She realized something very important that the other teams missed. Transcontinental Logistics wasn't just running one train, they were running a whole network. Secret messages they intercepted showed that the train crews had a very strict rule. They had to check in with each other every 30 minutes. If one train was stopped by the police or if a crew missed a check-in, a signal went out to every other train. That signal meant they had to get rid of the evidence. That was a polite way of saying they would take out every single prisoner. If the FBI stopped the train in Wyoming to save Michael Torres, the crews on the other 22 trains would get the message. They would dispose of every prisoner and dump them in a river before the agents could arrive. To save one man, they would be ending the lives of over 150 others. The mission changed in an instant. This could not be a simple rescue. It had to be a total takedown of every train at the exact same time. The logistics were mind-boggling. Morrison had to coordinate 73 different police groups across 17 states. She had to get SWAT teams and federal agents into place without the train drivers seeing them. They had to wait for the trains to reach very specific sections of track that were easy for armored trucks to reach, but far away from other people. For 3 days, the FBI just watched. They tracked the red dots like a slow-motion game of chess. They had to let the trains pass through big cities and cross state lines while they prayed Michael's tracker didn't run out of battery. The pressure was massive. Every hour they waited was another hour the prisoners spent in the dark. Finally, the window they needed opened up. At 1:45 p.m., all 23 trains were in the right spots. One was in a valley in Montana, another was on a bridge in Louisiana, and a third was idling in Ohio. The trap was set, but they needed a way to stop the trains without making the crews panic. They couldn't use sirens. They needed the crews to think it was just a normal railroad problem. Agent Morrison started a plan called Protocol Blackout. They contacted the main railroad dispatch centers and ordered them to send a fake emergency stop message to the trains. The drivers were told there was a broken track or a mechanical failure ahead. It was a clever lie meant to give the rescue teams 3 minutes of confusion. At 2 o'clock sharp, the radios in 23 train cabs turned on. The dispatchers told the drivers to stop immediately. One by one, the massive engines slowed down. The air brakes made a loud hissing sound. Inside the secret prison cars, the sudden stop threw the prisoners against the walls. In the dark, they had no idea if they were crashing or just stopping. But the real shock was waiting for the drivers outside their windows. Cutting the link. As the train stopped, the crews looked out expecting to see a fallen tree. Instead, on a hill overlooking the Montana train, an FBI sniper was looking through his scope. He wasn't aiming at the driver, he was aiming at a small antenna on the roof of the train. That antenna was the only way the crew could talk to the outside world. The sniper took the shot and the antenna exploded. In that second, the train was totally cut off. It couldn't send a warning to the other trains, and it couldn't receive a message to harm the prisoners. At that exact same time, 22 other snipers across 17 states took the same shot. The entire network was now blind. The command to go in was shouted over the radios. In Montana, agents jumped onto the side of car 23. They didn't ask for keys. They used special explosives to cut through the heavy steel locks. When the doors opened, they found a fake back wall. They kicked it in and the smell hit them immediately. It was a mix of old chemicals and fear. Inside the narrow hallway, guards were trying to break their phones. They tried to grab their guns, but they were looking at a dozen FBI rifles. The guards realized they were totally outnumbered and dropped their weapons. Agents moved from room to room, breaking the locks on the cell doors. In cell number 4, they found Michael Torres. He was very weak and shielding his eyes from the bright lights. He hadn't seen the sun in a long time. When the agent told him he was going home, Michael asked what day it was. He was so lost in the dark that he didn't even know the month. But Montana was just one part of the success. Reports started coming in from all over. Every train was being secured. By the time the sun went down, the numbers were unbelievable. Out of the 23 trains, 19 were carrying prisoners. 156 people were pulled out of the dark. They were business people, reporters, and witnesses. Some had been moving in circles around the country for months. They were so confused by the constant moving that they thought they were in different countries. Medical teams set up tents right on the tracks to help people who were hungry and scared. But while the survivors were being helped, another team was at a big mansion in Virginia. Marcus Devine was packing a bag when the FBI showed up. He wasn't even scared. He told the officers that he just ran a shipping company and that whatever his clients did was their own fault. But the agent told him that you don't build soundproof cells and boxcars just to ship freight. The evidence found at his house was enough to end his career forever. They found a digital list with 847 names on it. Since the FBI only found 156 survivors, that meant hundreds of people were still missing. The search for the truth was just beginning, and it was darker than anyone imagined. Dark numbers. The list they found was a digital record of every person who had been put on those trains over the last 6 years. It was a map of human suffering. Some names had a special code next to them that said final delivery. The FBI soon learned that this was a secret code for the end of a person's life. The investigation turned into a search for bodies in remote areas across the country. They looked in the swamps of the Everglades and the cold woods of the north. The scale of the operation was so big, it shocked the people on the jury during the trial. Marcus Devine faced hundreds of charges for kidnapping. The lawyers argued that he had turned the American Railroad into a weapon of terror. The jury didn't take long to decide. He was found guilty of everything. The judge gave him 47 life sentences plus 900 years. He will spend the rest of his life in a prison cell that will never move. The secret prison cars were not sold or reused. In a public display of justice, they were all crushed and melted down. The metal from those cages was used to build a statue in Washington, D.C. to remember the people who never made it home. Operation Iron Chain changed the way railroads work in America. Congress passed a new law that says freight cars must be inspected randomly and often. They even gave money for new tech that can hear a human heartbeat inside a moving metal container. The loophole that Marcus Devine used is now closed forever. Michael Torres eventually got better and now spends his time helping other missing people. He tells everyone about the moment that door opened in Montana. He thought the world had forgotten him, but the badge in the doorway proved that someone was still listening. Could there be other secret networks hiding right in front of us? This story shows that the truth is often stranger than fiction. Make sure to like and subscribe for more.